Hi everyone, welcome to the side of my house where I do all of my composting. This is where the black gold magic happens. Now a lot of you might be wondering, what's the big deal about compost? Doesn't it take a long time to break down? Don't you have to have exactly the right ratio of greens and browns to make it happen? Isn't it a lot of work? Don't you need to be smart to do it? And what's the big deal about feeding your garden with compost? First of all, what is compost? Compost is made up of leaves, grass clippings, kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, things that you've collected from around your garden that you then put into a compost pile. It breaks down, it decomposes, and makes some great organic matter for your soil. Now, I like to add compost to my garden each time I plant. It's nutrient dense, nice and fluffy, adds good aeration and drainage to the soil. There's many different ways to compost. You can just pile up the materials in your garden and just let them rot over time, or you can build a place to put your compost, such as this DIY compost bin, or you can purchase a ready-made bin that keeps your compost contained and keeps the critters out. So here's what you need to do. First, you need to start collecting some materials. My friend Harry has been collecting leaves for me. So here I've got a whole bunch of leaves collected for my compost pile. And I've also been collecting some food scraps from my kitchen. I've got all kinds of food scraps in here, including eggshells. You just don't want to have any meat or dairy in your compost pile. And I've also been collecting some coffee grounds. Now, a great way to get free coffee grounds is to go around to your local coffee shops and ask them for the coffee grounds that they've already used. A lot of times they just throw it away, and they love to give it away for gardeners, so it's reused for composting. And here's some more things I've been collecting from my garden as I trim off trees, pull out my old bean plants. I've been keeping them, putting them in these buckets, and I just don't use any plants that are diseased or have a lot of bugs. Now that I have all of my materials collected, the first tip for building a compost pile that breaks down faster is to build a large pile. A large pile will get hotter breaks down quicker, which gives you free black gold for your garden. Now, if you have a hard time collecting a whole bunch of materials at once, you can definitely build a small pile. But often, small piles don't heat up. They stay cold and can take about 6 months, even up to about 2 years to break down into compost. And since we want compost fast, we're going to make it big. Now, the optimal size for a hot compost pile is 3 feet wide by 3 feet tall. Now, we're partnering up with Smart Pots for this video, and today we're going to be making our compost in the Smart Pots compost sack. Now, I've composted in the compost sack for years, and I absolutely love it because it keeps the compost nice and neat and contained on the side of my house. It's the perfect size for a hot compost pile. It's about 3 feet tall, about 2.5 feet wide. And one thing I really like about it is it comes with a cover, which is great because it keeps the heat in and it keeps the critters out. And I know that's a problem for a lot of people. So the cover works really well for that. Now, the second tip to make compost that breaks down faster in your garden is to use the right materials. You're going to use materials called browns and greens, which doesn't refer to the color of the material, but more the type of material that they are. Browns are carbon-rich materials and consist of dried leaves, dried grasses, twigs from your garden, corn stalks. You can even use sawdust from untreated lumber or straw. They add bulk and they help air circulate in your compost pile. Greens, on the other hand, are nitrogen-rich materials such as food scraps from your kitchen, clippings from your garden, coffee grounds, including coffee filters and tea bags. These add essential nutrients and help your compost pile heat up. Now, when it comes time to putting the materials into your compost pile, a good ratio is 1 part green to 3 to 4 parts brown. Now, don't get too caught up in this. It doesn't have to be exact. Now, tip 3 to make compost that breaks down faster is the smaller the materials, the better. Now, my friend Harry collected all these leaves for me and shredded a lot of them up with his leaf shredder. But you can also run over them with the lawnmower in your yard to get them nice and small, because smaller will break down faster. Now, you could run your food scraps through the blender if you really want them to break down fast, or you can just chop them up with a shovel as you add them to your compost pile, which we'll be doing today. So now that we have all of our materials collected for our compost pile, we're just going to layer them in the compost sack, keep it really simple. I've just folded down the sides of the compost sack to make it easier to add everything to it. Now, if you don't have this many materials stockpiled all at once, just add them to the sack as you go. And then once your sack gets full, you can stop adding materials so everything heats up, and then your compost will break down faster. So first off, we're going to add some dried leaves. First, I'm just going to add a layer of dried shredded leaves. Now that I have my compost sack about a third of the way full with dried shredded leaves, it's time to talk about the fourth tip for helping compost break down faster, and that is keep it moist. When you keep your compost pile moist, you feed the microbes, which are tiny organisms that help break down the organic matter and make it into light, fluffy soil. So I'm just going to water down my shredded leaves. So we're going to mix it in so the water soaks into the leaves. And your compost pile should be about as moist as a wrung out sponge. So now that we have a layer of browns or our shredded leaves in our compost sack, it's time to add a layer of greens. And here I'm going to add some leaves and some garden scraps that I just cut out of the garden. I'm going to pour those in. Then we're going to chop them up so that they're smaller and break down faster. So for that, I'm going to use my pointed shovel and just start chopping. Now I'm going to add in a layer of coffee grounds, which is also a good green material. Now add a little bit more water. I'm going to mix it in, just so all the water gets mixed in with the materials. Now while I'm mixing the compost materials together, it's a good time to talk about the fifth tip for helping your compost break down faster. And that is, you've got to give it air. Remember those microbes I told you about, those tiny organisms that help your compost break down faster? They also need air to do their important work of making nice fluffy compost that'll feed your garden. And we're also going to be turning it and giving it air over the next few weeks as the compost is breaking down. So now I'm just going to continue layering my browns and my greens, adding water and mixing it in until my compost sack is full. Now, one thing I really like about the compost sack is the fabric. Not only is it super durable, but it's aerated, so the water drains right through to help your compost from getting waterlogged. It also gives really good airflow to your compost, which helps it break down faster. Gonna add in some more coffee grounds. I love the smell of those black coffee grounds. As my compost sack is filling up with my materials, I'm just going to unfold the sides, continue to fill it up to the very top. And then just continue filling it up to the very top. Let's chop these up a little bit, add some more water, mix it in. Now keep in mind that as you're adding materials and chopping it up, your compost pile will get smaller. So when I first added this bunch of leaves, it was up to here, and as I chopped it down, the materials are smaller. Now it's way down to here. And your compost pile will also get smaller as it decomposes. So let's add some more leaves, wet them down, mix it in. So I'm just repeating the steps of layering, adding water, mixing it in until we get to the top of the bag. We're almost there. So our compost sack is full. We've done our 5 tips to help our compost break down faster. We've built a nice big pile so it gets hot, breaks down quicker. We have a good mix of greens and browns, chopped them up nice and small, moistened everything up, and when we turned it, we added some air. Next, what I'm going to do is cover the compost sack with this handy cover that comes with it. This is going to help keep the heat in and keep the critters out. Now what I'm going to do in about 3 to 5 days is come out and check my pile, either with a compost thermometer or with a piece of rebar to see if it's getting hot. And then at that point, I'll be turning my pile to add more air to help keep the microbes happy, and the compost will break down quicker. So make sure you subscribe, because we'll definitely be coming back to give you that update. I want to thank SmartPots for partnering with us on this video. Head over to smartpots.com to check out the compost sack and use the code CallieKim for a 10% discount. Well, comment below if you're making compost to feed your garden. I can't wait to make some beautiful black gold along with you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.